My next patron question is from Aiden, who wants to know why a lot of animation tends to be ignored. I feel that the discourse around animation is frequently narrow and ignores many eclectic forms of it that have been produced globally over the past century. There's also the tendency to exclude the prominent use of animation in video games and in the special effects of live-action films. An example of this is the 1970s, 1980s, which I feel many transgressive and experimental anime productions globally is frequently condescendingly referred to as the dark age of animation. Why do people tend to exclude many of these forms while they try to appear as if they're discussing animation as a whole? I have sort of noticed that a lot of people online focus on specific studios and time periods when it comes to animation. Obviously, Disney is the most popular topic, along with Warner Brothers and DreamWorks. However, you don't see too many video essays or animation-related videos about some other notable contributions and artists in the medium. Let's use Aiden's example of the 70s. I confess I used to be one of those people who considered the 1970s a dark period in animation. That probably was not helped by animation documentaries framing it that way, especially regarding Disney, which had slowed down its animation operations at the time as the 9 old men were aging and they were in desperate need of new younger animators. But when you actually dig into the time, you will find a lot of experimental and interesting animation being produced outside of Disney. I've long been an admirer of the animated shorts produced by the National Film Board of Canada. If you spend some hours on the NFB YouTube channel and watching the animated shorts from that time, you'll find so many gems. A remarkable short NFB produced in the 70s was The Sandcastle, which deservedly won an Oscar for Best Animated Short. It was directed by Ko Hodeman, who may not have the name recognition of a Don Bluth or Ralph Bakshi, but he deserves to be remembered, along with several other talented artists and animators who made shorts like that during the 70s. Studios like Nelvana were also popping up in the 70s and doing some neat things with the resources available to them. You can also look around the world and see a lot of incredible work being done throughout Europe, Asia, and other continents. I always try my best to find these international animated productions and give them a watch when they become available, either on streaming or if it gets released by some boutique label releasing it on Blu-ray. Something I admit I often try to do better with is Japanese animation. I'm obviously very familiar with the works of Hayao Miyazaki and the rest of Studio Ghibli. I love a lot of those movies, and they were even some of the first Japanese animated films I ever got into. And naturally, I've seen Akira and The Girl Who Left Through Time, and other well-known animated films from Japan. But even then, I feel like I'm behind, and I still have a lot to catch up on, and there's so much more to discover, so I'm always up for expanding my horizons a bit more in that area. Same with a lot of animation from other countries, which I think is an issue for a lot of people. Part of it is, of course, availability. There can be rights issues that can prevent a good quality version being widely available, which would limit discussion of that production. The German animated film Felidae had long been hard to get a hold of outside of certain territories, and in order to watch it, you would have to make do with someone uploading it on YouTube. In fact, only very recently did the movie get a home release in North America and become officially available on digital services. There are probably several examples of this, which is why I often appreciate when the likes of G-Kids and Shout Factory get the rights to certain titles. I think the companies that distribute animation are just as important as animation fans to keeping discussion of them alive. Noted animation historians like Jerry Beck and Lennon Moulton also do a pretty good job of discussing animation of all sorts, with Beck even running a company in the late 80s and 90s named Streamline Pictures that specialized in importing international animated films. I think if you're truly interested in the entire scope of what animation has to offer, do the research and get outside of your comfort zone. There's so many resources online and in books that can introduce you to a world of animation beyond the big studios. I think if you care about the medium, it's important to not just know the history of Disney or Warner Brothers animation, but also those of artists around the world who have carved their own impressive filmography independently. Shine a light on people like Paul Grammont, Norm Maclaren, and others who've shaped animation in their own way and deserve to be recognized as much as the Walt Disneys, Hayao Miyazakis, and Hanna-Barberas. After all, as the saying goes, you learn something new every day. Thank you for your question, Nathan.